Of course, Gabon in Central Africa, very rich, as we said in the introduction. How do you make this an attractive investment destination for private enterprise?
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to provide some insight with regard to the Central African region. You know, the African Development Bank is one of the key partners in this region. And what we are trying to do is to put together all the stakeholders, particularly public sector, private sector, and other NGOs, to meet together and to discuss the challenges with regard to the private sector development. So this exercise is something I think the first time that we are trying this to put together all these stakeholders. What I think is that most of people who attended this workshop were very happy, because it's the first time that we put them together to talk, to exchange views, and to see what are the main challenges that they have to look into and to find solutions.
Mm-hmm. Now, when we talk about those challenges, Mr. Martin, take us through what the biggest challenges are to develop private-public partnerships in Central Africa.
Yeah, you know, the challenges are very common in most of regions, in particular enabling environment for private sector development, high cost of factors for development, private sector development. We have also all issues related to the lack of infrastructure, also question of lack of skills, human capacity, and all these challenges have been discussed, and we managed to make some presentation in terms of some success stories in the region. And I could mention, for example, in Burundi, we have some incubator program that was presented to the all attendees during the sessions. Mm-hmm. And I could also mention one other case with regard to the we call Enterprise House in Burkina Faso. And this was very, very useful for all the people who attended the workshop.
Now, Mr. Martin, what about the questions of political risk? A lot of the countries in Central Africa, they're very rich in mineral resources, but there are problems around political stability and security issues. How big a factor is that in terms of developing private enterprise?
Definitively, this is one of the key issues that we mentioned during, which was discussed during the workshop. All of people who attended this event recognize that the political stability is crucial for private sector development, and but we don't have so much control in this area, but it's very important from the bank side to continue dialogue with the government in terms of government, in terms of, I would say, social inclusive development, in order to ensure that we maintain a kind of redistribution of revenue in the country, and so we could secure that the social development is maintained.
Now, of course, the question of socio-economic development is crucial. A big problem in a lot of fragile states is the absence of a growing middle class. You have, the political elite who often access economic empowerment through their positions in political office. What is the bank's, plan in terms of generating initiatives around developing growing middle classes that can become viable and make essentially these countries attractive as investment destinations?
Definitively, I think one of the big challenges to build this to fix, maybe I would say, this missing link between the lower class and the higher class of the society. And the bank, through its new private sector development policy and the strategy, which is being revised, we intended to focus on the private sector development, building entrepreneurship, and provide capacity building program, access to credit, and all support that are needed for the small and medium enterprises. So we make sure that through the countries, we be able to create a kind of sustainable private sector development programs. And this, by the end, we'll be able to create jobs and distribution of revenues.
Now, of course, the question of accessing capital is always a big issue, particularly in African countries, even those that have more stable institutions. Was this discussed at the workshop, Mr. Martin? And if so, what are the potential solutions to deal with accessing capital markets for private sector investment?
Access to capital market is, I think, one of the issues that was also discussed. But I think at this stage, for most of the countries, at the national level, what they are trying to focus on is to the development of the local financial institutions. But through the regional economic communities like ICAS and the other one, CEMAC, the idea is to strengthen capacity of the regional capital market so that medium enterprises could access this capital market to access credit.
Now, the other big challenge in a lot of countries, such as that we find in Central Africa, is of course the issue of regulation and being certain that once a deal is concluded, that it will be legally protected. Was this discussed at the workshop? And if so, what are the concerns that came out around, the regulatory framework in which business gets done, particularly given the fact that not all countries have, the same base to start from?
Definitely, you're right, mention the issue of the regulatory framework. One of the outcome of this workshop, it's the institutional environment that should be strengthened. And I think on the fiscal, legal, and regulatory framework, the bank intends to provide support not only at the country levels, but also at the regional level. And we have ongoing projects in terms of governance and at the country levels as well as the regional level. So through these programs, we intend to enhance the enabling environment for private sector development. We expect also to have a kind of harmonization of the regulatory framework through all the member countries in order to facilitate access and circulation of resources through all the countries.